Hey friends, welcome to this week of the Inspire Sessions. We got a real special one today. I know many of you who follow me see that I wear this hat on just about every single video. It says Underdog Coffee here. And today we are talking to the Underdog Coffee himself, the Dog Father. He goes by many names in my book: J-Hog, Jay Higglesworth, Dude, but most people know him as Jeffrey Hoagland. And he's one of my best friends, and I can't wait to have this conversation and share him with you guys. This week's sponsor is Joy Academy, which is my community. You can find Joy Academy in 2 locations. The free version is on Facebook. It's a Facebook group. So hop in there, get involved, learn about it, and decide if you want to move over to the paid version, which is on a platform called School. And on School, it's a course-based community. But the big important thing there is that we have a bi-weekly meeting, a Zoom call, where you can be face-to-face with me and some other founders of Joy Academy. And it's a great community. We lift each other up. We're there for each other when we're having a hard moment or going through a tough season, and we celebrate each other's wins. So I would love to see you over there. If you want to learn more, go to my website, which is benfisherinspires.com. All right, with that being said, let's hop into it. Jay Higglesworth, what's up, dude?
How are you, been jamming?
I'm good. Does your wife have you down in the dungeon, or what's going on
there? Myself down in the dungeon, man. The kids are still asleep, and I mean, it doesn't feel like the best lighting. The furnace is going.
No, it looks good.
Okay,
it looks good.
Okay, man.
Yeah, as long as I can see your face.
Okay.
I think it's good. And it's good that you're down there, because I know that you are next to all your coffee where you do all your shipping. And just before you logged on here, I was telling everybody about, we are talking to the man, the myth, the legend, the Dog Father.
How are you this morning?
I'm good, dude. This is different. It's 7:30 in the morning. I don't know if I could ever do this with any other podcast guest.
Okay.
But this is typical for me and you.
This is the time we usually talk every week, right?
Yeah. So a lot of times, like on my videos on Facebook, I'll mention like, I talked with a friend the other day, or I talked with a friend yesterday. And just so everybody knows, like, this is the friend that I was talking to. And it's always when he's on his way to work, just early in the morning, because he knows I'm a morning person. So I'm up. So we've just kind of have this routine of, once a week, maybe once every other week, depends on how busy our week's going. We hop on the call, and I always say on those calls, like, man, I wish we were recording this.
Right.
Such an epic conversation. There's some good nuggets. I don't know if we'll be able to pull any good nuggets out today, but I'm hopeful that we can. So we'll see what happens. I don't have very many friends, to be honest with you. I know a lot of people,
right,
and a lot of people know me, but I don't have a lot of people I consider. Maybe, I can count them on my hand, people that I could call and just tell my deepest, darkest secrets to, just like vent to. And you're on top of that list. So that regular thing we got going on is important to me. So I'm appreciative, man, of you being that person.
Yeah, it's really something to be grateful for. I think just the ability to feel safe in someone's presence, right? And I think a relationship like ours makes me think of all of the little tiny things that are inside of relationships that might make you feel unsafe in a moment. Yeah. And I don't know what it is about our relationship that transcends all of the little things that take away the feeling of safety. Well, I bet you I do know. Love is why.
Dude,
love it, right? I guess that's the thing that transcends everything. It's a love and a mutual respect.
I love you, dude.
I'm sure we say some wacky stuff sometimes to other people. Like, what?
You have this way of making me, like, I don't want to say look or feel dumb, but like, I'm vulnerable with you. So sometimes I say some things where I get off the phone, I'm like, like I wish I would have said that differently, but I said it the way I said it because I felt safe
right
with you
right
in that moment. whether we're talking about relationship stuff with our wives, and I may say something, and as I'm saying it, I'm like, do I really believe this? And like, you'll ask questions that pull the truth out of the moment. And then it really makes me think. I've had more conversations with you that just make me think differently than I've had with anybody. And at the end of every conversation, with your point, like, it always ends with an I love you, dude.
Yeah.
It's a good thing we got going on,
Mhm.
man. Definitely a good. So I appreciate you being here, being a podcast guest
Oh,
with me. I think we'll need to do this on a regular basis.
well,
Because I
when I
think it'll
think
be
about
fun.
it, Ben, this is how our relationship started.
It did.
Our relationship started, I mean, I think we're at the 5-year mark, and it started with podcast or video interview, for A String of Hope 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys came to my house there in Westchester. Caitlin was like 8 months pregnant
Dude,
or
about
something like that.
we had no idea how close she really was to popping. It was like just a few days later that it was like, "Oh, we got a baby."
Yeah. You guys sat in my living room. You told your epic story. It was beautiful. A couple weeks later, she popped. I went over and like cut your grass for you.
Dude,
You didn't let me cut your grass for you alone, though. You had to come over and keep an eye on me. You didn't trust me enough just yet.
like, "Who is
I
this
think it was
dude?
more
I
like
just
you
met
needed to
this
get,
dude."
or I just met this dude. Why is he offering to come cut my grass? I needed it. I knew we were going to be friends, man.
Yeah.
Like, I just knew it. So I just wanted to keep doing things to like connect with you
Mm,
so we could kind of solidify that. And now I've moved 500 miles away.
right.
So we've continued the conversations. And then, whenever I do come back in town, I make it a point to see you.
Mm,
So very cool stuff, man. I want to, we have a lot to talk about and not a ton of time
okay.
because we both, I got to get to work here in a little bit. And then you have kids that are going to be waking up any minute
Mhm.
that you need to take care of. But I wanted to start off, if you're comfortable with it, something happened to you on your drive home the other day
Uh,
with your family. And if you're comfortable talking about it, could you tell that story the way that you told it to me the first time you told it to me? Think it's an important thing to bring up and can steer our conversation in a interesting direction.
yeah, sure, man. Can I start out just I just wanna hit on something real quick. I want
Yeah,
you to
please.
know that I'm doing this because of the love and respect I have for what it is that you're doing on your platform. This was a very hard decision to make, to be a part of something on social media again. Our history, and my wife and I's history has been like just living out loud on social media, right? People know our
Mhm.
recovery story. People know our struggles with, difficulties with pregnancies and the difficulties with our dogs and just in life in general. And about a year ago, we kind of virtually stopped letting the outside world know that we were doing and started living like a little bit more of an insulated community life with the people that were around us instead of the people that followed us. And it's been a bit of a journey away from what it is that this is. And so this was you and I have had, I just, people don't know about this, but you and I have had back and forth conversations about this. And man, I would love if you'd come and like, yeah, man.
With you saying that, I want you to know that the stuff that I have planned for today,
Yeah.
it all surrounds that.
Right.
I want to talk about that for mainly this entire podcast. But let's start there and then we'll kind of segue into a little bit of your story. And then let's talk about Facebook and your decision to cut ties with it. So
For sure.
tell me that story of what happened the other night.
Yeah, man, for sure. So, it was, what, 2 Wednesdays ago now. My wife and I were on our way from her parents' house in Lebanon, and we were headed towards Monroe. And if you're not from Ohio, it's Highway 63 is a bypass between two of our major highways, 70 and 71. And it's a 2-lane road, but it's a highway. It's a 2-lane road, and it's very thin, and it's 55 miles an hour, and it's pitch black at night. and it always feels a little bit uneasy. And last Wednesday night, we're coming up the road, and Caitlin, my wife, tends to watch the road extra well at night because she knows that I'm not the best at seeing, and she points out that maybe about 200 yards up on the road, a lady had hit her brakes and was kind of pulling over to the side. And so she's like, "Hey, slow down a little bit." And mind you, what I'm describing happens in a matter of 5 to 8 seconds, right?
Yeah.
And so she says, "Hey, slow down." And so we're at 55. And so we slow down to 45 miles an hour. And without any warning, all of a sudden we are in the middle of a car accident that's happened 30 to 45 seconds prior to us, coming up on this scene at 55 miles an hour, and make a decision in the moment because we don't know what's going on around us. Like, I just slow down naturally and run over God knows what at this point in time. Two cars had hit head on at 55 miles an hour, and it was destruction everywhere, right? There is nowhere to drive that you're not hitting something or putting my family that's in the car in danger. So we drive on through while slowing down, and my wife calls 911, and I get out of the vehicle to hear another lady, the lady whose brakes we had seen, is like, "Hey, can you come help?" Man, we run over to these vehicles that are sitting there, and she's on the phone with dispatch, and they're like, "Hey, can somebody check her vitals?" And so the lady's, she's not struggling, but she's kind of moving around, that, she's not really responding to what I'm saying. I'm able to get a pulse on her neck and let her, like, "Hey, she's alive." And, that lasted for about 7 seconds, and then it's gone. Yeah, man. I've seen, my story, where I've come from and the amount of drugs I've put into my body and scary situations and jail time, all of these different things. And one thing that was just not on my list of experiences was being the only person to be with somebody when
Yeah.
they passed. And man, I'll tell you what, I don't know if it was shock or like there was an, an intimate side of like knowing her name and her story that was missing that night that I found her. But that next morning, I checked the news, and then I went to her Facebook, and I was able to see this young lady, 33 years old, mother of six, wife, a bonus mom to four other children, uh, with life in her eyes, you know?
Yeah.
And gosh, man, it just has really affected me.
No.
Saddening,
And that's why,
you know?
yeah. Yeah. That's
Sad.
why I wanted to bring this up first,
Yeah,
because there's a couple aspects of this that loosely segue into what I want to talk about. And I'm sorry to get you so
it's
emotional
good.
this early in the morning, man. I appreciate you kind of opening up and being willing to speak about this. But, the first aspect of it is looking at what's important in life, because we get so caught up with social media, work, different things, different dramas that happen throughout life, drama that's happening at church or whatever. And moments like that, even you telling me the story, me not experiencing it, really has affected me too. And just thinking about what's important in life. Right. And that's one aspect of it. And the other aspect of it is the fact that you haven't been on social media. Your wife hasn't been on social media. You have this huge following and you used to be active every single day. I haven't seen anything. And one of the only things I've seen from you was recently, and it's where you posted, I think it was a GoFundMe or something for the family of this woman.
Mhm.
Um, so that was enough to just to bring you back, to put something out there.
Mhm.
And, I'm assuming that you'll kind of go back to your normal way of living, kind of away from Facebook. But I thought it was interesting. It's still there. It's a way for us to connect and connect with each other. And it's just kind of this interesting circle
Mhm.
that I'm seeing. So thank you for opening up about that.
Mhm.
And I know that I believe you called her husband
We
or
were
somebody in her family.
Yeah, we were able to have a conversation. It ended up being just a conversation over text, but I really struggled with that.
Yeah,
I felt like there's so many imaginary constraints we put on things, whether it's the right time or the right message, or how does he feel
yeah,
right now? And really, like what I got to after a number of days, is I just felt burdened with this information
yeah,
that somebody else's loved one had someone that was praying for them, that somebody was with
mm,
them that cared, that
yeah.
individual wasn't struggling, that she passed peacefully. That felt like such a burden to have that information, and for the family to be left wondering. They don't even
Yeah.
know, right? At this point, two cars involved, no eyewitnesses. They're going to be waiting weeks, maybe months, for what really happened, right?
Yeah.
So to hold like a piece of information that could unlock some, man, just if it could help them not feel tormented.
I made a video the other day about how difficult it is for me to um, communicate with people who are going through something.
Mm.
And I think that's a common thing with people. You don't know what to say. Like when somebody's lost a loved one abruptly or even at all, like how do you how do you start a conversation? What do you do? And really what it came down to for me was, saying nothing is worse than just being there for them. I've been guilty of avoiding people because I don't want to make things worse
Mhm.
on them. I don't want to say the wrong thing. And I think that's what you were struggling with too, is like you wanted to communicate to this dude like she wasn't alone. She wasn't she looked like she was in peace. She wasn't in pain.
Mhm.
And you want to tell him that, but then you think like, man, what would be going through his mind? Would he be thinking like, I should have been the one that was there? Or maybe like it was supposed to be him who was taking somebody somewhere and should have been on the way back. And like maybe he has some sort of guilt around that. You just don't know.
Mhm.
But the point is like ignoring people isn't the right solution. Maybe not saying something specifically is okay, but just being there for somebody. And I
Sure.
think you sending that text was you being there
Yeah.
for him. And even if it may have hurt in the moment and caused him pain and tears, I think down the road, he's going to look back and be like, man, I'm really thankful for that guy that sent me a text.
Yeah.
Now it gives me comfort
Right.
to
That's the
know,
hope, right?
you know, yeah,
When I think a lot of times I think about my own struggles. Like if a friend comes and like, man, I'm really struggling in this area. I think that's where I kind of relate more to what you're talking about. Because too often I think that I have all the answers and I can just share this wisdom, that's really hard for me, just to like, I just start giving advice. Right. And a lot of times what friends need is just an ear. Right.
yeah,
A lot of times
yeah,
all my wife needs is just the opportunity to tell me about her day, not to hear
yeah,
my solution. Right. About the part of her day that I feel in all of my grandness and full of pride and ego think that I could solve. Hey, shameless plug. I mean, if anybody goes to
yeah,
the website right now, there's virtually no coffee on the shelf right now. 4-year-old and 2-year-old, and life gets a little bit busy, but if you're there, it'll be there soon.
yeah. Just to make sense of that, Jeffrey does own a coffee company called Underdog Coffee. And if you guys want to check that out, Jeffrey, tell them I believe it's underdogcoffeelife.com.
Underdogcoffeelife.com.
Dude,
Yes,
nailed
sir.
it. I had that memorized.
You got
I'm
it.
such a good friend, bro.
Right.
Huh. Sorry to sidetrack that.
No, I mean, it
I needed
happens.
a drink and
We're both unmedicated mental health you
ADHD
know?
basket cases. I love that.
We're just
Yeah,
raw
that's
dog.
for sure.
We're just raw dogging life.
Yeah,
Why we
my
gotta do it together. We'd
raw
be
dog.
absolutely insane without each other, man.
Oh my God, raw dog in life with ADHD. Yeah. So I want to segue out of that a little bit, and I want to get your story in like a 1 minute nutshell, because I want you to bring me to what brought you and Caitlin to the Facebook celebrity status. What got you to that point? But I want you to start with, what happened to you to cause you to spiral out of control,
Mm,
kind of touch on that,
mhm.
and then just zip through all the years
Yeah,
of chaos
yeah.
and then get me there.
I was born and raised Seattle, Washington, middle upper class. We grew up in the one true church, the A Cappella Church of Christ. Raised very well, pretty sheltered and protected from the world. Big family, 5 sisters and a brother. Mom and dad were both there. Mom was stay-at-home mom. Dad was Superman. Dad worked every day.
Mm.
Dad made every single sporting event I ever had. Uh, Dad was supportive always. Dad was of service to others always. Just a really good example of a man of God, right? And a man that I would want to model my life after moving forward. When I was 19, my dad got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and passed away very, very suddenly, 6 months or so. And I had known no other tragedy in my life, no other trauma. And that first sign of trauma for me, I turned to drugs to cope with life. And really, I can skip the next 15 years, because the next 15 years from that moment forward, jails, institutions,
Chaos.
spiritual death, criminal activity, sexual immorality. I mean, just I lived a life void of the presence of anything other than my will, is how I'll put
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
my career as a drug addict and a criminal was intervened on by the Washington State Department of Corrections. And I was given a second chance at a life outside of prison. And I took full advantage of it. I took full advantage of the opportunity given to me. There's nothing in my life today, nothing that looks anything like the life I lived up until 2013. Met my wife.
That's a good thing.
Man, it's a beautiful thing. Oh, my poor kids, if any part of that life resembled my life now, and they would be in for a rude life. Grateful for that.
Yeah.
Man, so I met Caitlin in 2000 in the rooms of 12-step fellowship. And gosh, man, we really there's a lot more to this story. You know that, but we hit it off
Yeah.
well. We're very good friends for a period of time, and kind of like, there wasn't anything romantic, but we were really cool friends. And her mom asked her if she would invite me to her sister's wedding. And after she had invited me to that, we kind of just started hanging out in a different way, and it just blossomed and grew. And
But you guys had your first kiss at that wedding,
we
didn't you?
did. We had our first kiss at that
You
wedding. Yeah. On
snuck
camera,
one in there.
snuck it in there to be recorded in the annals of history.
I think we have that picture on Facebook somewhere. I'll have to go steal that and flash it on
Probably.
screen.
I think it was part of the String of Hope episode. That's fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So my wife, so Caitlin's she was on Facebook a lot, and we had a lot of dogs, and she's a very good writer, and she had this way to tell about to bridge the gap between life and recovery, and she can make you feel exactly what it is she's putting on the page. And people just started to like flock to her vulnerability and her writing style. And I was in the background as this dude that didn't mind being on camera and can ham it up pretty quick and can kind of steal the energy in the room and make it bigger at times. And we kind of like had this perfect storm of message of hope,
Yeah.
entertaining dogs, not so bad looking husband and wife that, that can,
Right.
that can be like everything just kind of fit in this Facebook page just like blew up out of nowhere, right? It was like she had started this page and posted some funny videos. And then we had this birthday party with McDonald's cheeseburgers all sitting around a table. And we woke up one morning to like 41 million views and like 100,000 new followers. And we're like, holy crap, what is going on?
Yeah.
And then she was approached by Facebook. She was one of the first 25 influencers that were offered this beta monetization platform for Facebook to start doing A/B testing on it and to do these things. And our lives changed.
Yeah.
Caitlin quit her job. She went from, making a fairly good accounting salary, being a college educated accountant, right? Working like tripled her salary overnight, right? Like
Mhm.
all of these things pouring in. All of a sudden, I don't have to work, but I get to choose to go to work and just living our life out loud, social media, right?
Yeah.
And then COVID happened, and it was like this perfect storm of we're isolated inside and we have no community around us, but we have this Facebook community, and we were all in. Every moment,
Hmm.
every day was thinking of content, responding to criticism, responding to good comments. You were there for that for a
I was there, and you guys were on fire, man. Like with Facebook, things were going nuts, and the criticism, though, like we'll get into that. Like I want to talk about like what really led to the decision to step away. We'll
yeah.
get to that, but the criticism was just wild to me. Some of the people that you guys had
Mhm.
just hating on you for no reason
Yeah,
whatsoever,
right.
and I'm sure that that was a big part of your decision to step away, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I I think for both Caitlin and I, it wasn't even the criticism that came towards us. Like we can handle it, right? I had a lot of fun with it. My whole persona became the clapback, right? No matter what
Yeah,
somebody had to say, it, and Caitlin defended herself, right?
yeah.
I think over the
You
course
get
of time, while that wears the individual down a little bit, this Caitlin got to this before I did. Caitlin started looking at the whole of social media, right? Like to find her own sense of peace. And I don't want to speak a ton for Caitlin in this, but
yeah,
but but looking at the whole of social media, she was able to see that, okay, this isn't just me. This is just the way that people are responding to any social media. I don't care how positive a thing you find, there is hate, right?
yeah,
And it just, for her first, and then me too, it just started to feel very just, the whole thing was ugly. Stepping back from social media, we're also just really diving into our faith, right? And a big thing has been like, dude, we became our own idols. Dogs and other unsolicited advice became the thing that we served,
yeah.
right?
Mm,
Underdog coffee became my identity. Dogs and other unsolicited advice became my wife's identity, right?
yeah. I can relate to that so much, just from the standpoint of where I'm at with the followers that I have, and I feel like, at least in the past, I've felt this sense of I have to post. I have to get this many posts up to keep the algorithm going, to keep feeding it. And, through my conversations with you and just talking with you and getting some clarity and some perspective on it, I can say for the last year, I've felt comfortable stepping away for
Mm,
numerous days. I've stepped away for, weeks at a time.
Didn't you do like
You
9
know, I,
days straight the other couple a
yeah, I
month
did.
ago or something?
Yeah, I did 9 days straight, but I think I went in and like scheduled some old posts or something to go up just to keep it going. But
Sure.
I took 9 days off, and in the past, I've been doing this for 5 years
Yeah.
now, 5 years plus. And in the past, like, I never would have done that. I never could have had peace doing that. I would have been
Right.
thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm losing all the momentum I had. But, through your perspective, through the lens of what you're going through, I was able to say, okay, you know what? Maybe this will be healthy for me to do this because it's caused a lot of anxiety in me. And
Yeah.
I, through those 9 days, I felt a change.
Yeah.
I was less depressed. I felt less anxious about things. So I've gained a lot of clarity through that, and knowing like, hey, if I need to step away, I can step away. It's no big deal. I'll come back, and maybe I'll get less views on a post, but who cares? You know what I mean? If a video is good enough and you have an idea, because that's another thing of it. It's like I felt like I needed to post every single day, and some of my videos and content, I would look back and be like, that was just okay. That thought was okay because it was forced,
Mhm.
right? So now it's coming from a place of I really have a strong feeling and a thought, and I'm going to put a lot into it, and the videos will come out better
Sure.
because there's not this stress of just having to produce all the time.
Right. Right.
So I'm interested. Was there an exact moment where you knew it was time to step away? And I know speaking with you, like Caitlin kind of just started to fizzle out, and then you were trying to hold on to it a little bit. And it seemed like it kind of just eventually fizzled out. But it seemed like also there was a point where you guys just said, nope, we're done and we're not coming back.
You
What was that exact moment?
you know, I don't know that I could tell you the exact moment, and I don't think I haven't had my exact moment yet where I'm like, "I'm done," right? I still have it on my phone. I still check it. I'm just
Yeah.
uninvolved with it, right? I'm
Yeah.
kinda like just a creep in the background at this point, you know? I want everybody to feel equal, so I don't like anything or comment on anything, right? I just leave it all in the ether, and it bothers me that I'll tell you one of my struggles right now, it bothers me that I have an unwillingness to deactivate my account and delete Facebook because
Yeah.
I'm committed to not being an overly active or active participant. I really believe that it is ruining our children's lives. It is it
Yeah.
is it is it is putting a barrier in authentic community relationships. I think it's putting a barrier between husbands and wives. I think it's putting a
Yeah.
barrier between children and their parents, right? It's teaching our children at
Yeah.
such a young age to keep up with trends and the Joneses and I still can't deactivate my account and delete it. Believe everything that just came out of my mouth. So I as we started having children, when Eliana came, the page blew up even more because now there's just this magnificent daughter and she's adorable. And the people that weren't going to have kids and we're all about their dogs. Now there's a baby and a furless puppy, and it kind of blew up. And so Caitlin started a page for Eliana. We added it into our will. We wanted it to be something. It was with the best intention in the world. We wanted
Yeah.
it to be something that could be built and handed on as a business. And when the criticism started rolling in for the way we were parents or about our kid versus dogs, her mind started to change very quickly.
It hit different.
It hit
Yeah.
different, hit
Mm.
different. And so that the fizzling out you're talking about, there was a motivational fizzling out of like, man, is it worth it to then, get this criticism about who we are as parents? Like we know, but again, we're inflated by what Facebook thinks of us, right? Things like
Yeah.
that. So the fizzle out started there, and as being parents became more important, as we understood being parents better very quickly, it just started feeling gross
Yeah.
to not only just putting our kids online and it made us money, like it started to feel gross, like, hey, you're kind of just selling your kids, right? But there was a bigger, I think there was a bigger, I'm going to say it was a bigger part, man, that every single thing we did, the thought process of how could this be good content was there.
Yeah.
This would be a great picture. Do you have your babe? Can you pose again? Let's get another one. Hey, kids, just sit still one more minute. Let's like, hey guys, sunset's beautiful. All of that stuff, man. While that was all going on, we weren't living in the moment.
Yeah.
We weren't, we weren't enjoying the moment. We were enjoying the idea of what the moment could be for someone else down the line and what music to put behind it and which music's going to get the best attraction. And we want the engagement to be high. We haven't had a good video in a while. So we want this video, all of that crap, man. And we couldn't figure out how raising a family the way we wanted to raise a family and being content creators, influencers, whatever you want to call it, how those things could line up. And we really both reached a point, I've struggled with the identity of, my work being my identity, underdog being my identity, dogs and other unsolicited advice being my identity. And my wife was struggling with just her Facebook persona being her identity, right? She's,
Yeah.
we have
Yeah.
these identities that we always identify with something. To both of us, identifying as a son of God and a daughter of God
Yeah.
became more important. Identifying as a loving, caring, present mother and father became more
Kudos to you.
important,
And I'm still out here walking the line. I'm
it's okay.
not ready to shut it down. I'm building new things on all these social media apps, and I'm trying to find that perfect line to walk and that perfect amount of self-control and willpower and being able to stay in the moment. And I can
Yeah.
say that, I've had arguments with my wife over being unpresent and disconnected because of all these things I have going on in social media. So I can't say I'm doing a perfect job, but I'm trying to figure it out because I do feel like I have a lot to offer
Mhm.
the world as far as inspiring. I mean, this podcast is called Inspire Sessions. I want to show people another way, a different way. And the only way to do that is to put myself out there. So, until I make the decision that I don't want to do that anymore,
Right.
um, at least in this manner, like maybe I could go work for a church again and inspire people in person in a different way. And that's always an option. But yeah, I had a discussion the other day about some of the things that you mentioned about how you're talking about how you're going to make the scene better or the video better and do this or that. And maybe you start to do some things that you probably wouldn't do just because you want the video to pop.
Right.
And we were talking about it in the sense of like television shows like Hoarders or Intervention, where they have whole crews of people that are making money off this show and making money off the fact that it's going to be a success and
Mhm.
and a hit and people are going to be watching it. And they realize that people want to watch a train wreck. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They want to
Yeah.
watch all the negativity and that's what causes it. So I think society, like these shows that we watch and social media has really like, they've caught on to that. And maybe the crew guy that's just doing the rigging for the set doesn't have a lot to do with this, but they're all working together and it's moving society in this direction where we're putting this content out there into the world that's not necessarily healthy
Mhm.
for anybody or anyone. The people making it, the people viewing it, the subject that they're filming.
Right.
So it's this, I love the idea of this shift that you're making. And we've talked a lot about your spirituality and how you're going to church and how you're becoming closer to God. We've had discussions where in the past, like you were struggling a lot with some doubt,
Mhm.
um, as I have been too. And those have all been good conversations, man. And I just kudos to you for being able to see that, to be able to step away, to be able to live in the moment, to
Yeah.
be present, and to be a good father to your kids. And I want to give this perspective to everybody here listening,
Yeah.
right? And I got a whole list of questions here that I want to guide you through to eventually help get to a point where if somebody is on the fence of like, do I need to put this down or do I not? Like, how do I do it?
I want to be vulnerable with you for a second and tell you that a lot of times when our conversations, well, let's be honest, every single conversation we have, social media is brought up, right? It's your job.
Yeah.
It's your job. It's
Yeah.
got, right. And but at a lot of times when we get off the phone, I feel like I hope that when we get off the phone and we have two very different views of social media right now, you know that you're not judged, right? That I really think that what you do is good. I really think that there is a way for anybody that would want to. I think Caitlin and I, we just didn't want to put in the effort anymore to try to make our two worlds mesh, right?
Yeah.
We wanted to just live, right? And I think there's a way, and there's going to be people that figure it out, and you're probably one of them that's going to be able to do this and be present and like, because we can do all the things. We
Yeah.
can if we want, and if you want it, right? I hope that I hope that we never get off the phone, and the message that's been put across is like, Ben's doing it wrong, or you shouldn't be doing it, Ben. You know what I mean? Because
No.
I know that when I get in the middle of my things, I can be pretty strong about the way that I, feel about it.
No, I've never felt that way at all. I think we're close enough, man, to where if that ever happens, like we can talk about it right on the spot. You know, if you
You can
ever
just
say anything to me that makes me feel a certain way, I'll just tell you to shut up,
you just
dude.
call me a jerk. Shut up, you jerk.
Shut up, jerk. So how did your relationships change after you did decide to kind of step back? How have your relationships changed with Caitlin, with your kids? And I know that you've been going to church and you've been forming new relationships. How did this change?
Here's how those relationships were affected before those relationships changed. Caitlin was my only person outside, right? I had I've got a best friend that I work with that also, and but there was only a couple people in my life, in my community, and Caitlin really took the brunt of like she was my friend, and she was my wife, and she was my confidant, and she was who I vented to, and then she was who I cried to, right? And she had to fill like all of these roles because I wasn't putting any time into insulating and building a community of dudes around me. And I think that's one of the things that social media does to us is it like I'm getting input from all of these different people. And no matter what I post, the people that matter are posting, looks great, guys. Oh, love you guys. Keep doing it. We support you. Oh, that message was amazing. Right. And like, as this overinflated vision of self happened, there's no need for people. I don't need anybody. I know how I feel about me. I got all these people around me telling me great things that have never met me. Very important people. I'm still close to a lot of them, today in my life. But all of that put a lot of pressure on Caitlin to be everything for me. And
Mm,
as we pulled away from, it's a community, it's a synthetic community, but I think it's a community nonetheless, right? I think there's a
yeah.
lot of positives that are possible and do come, and people's lives are saved by social media, right? There's a lot of good that's happened. Um, I was able to, with stepping away, was able to start putting the time that social media was taking for both Caitlin and I into some other areas of our life. Um, and through that, Caitlin and my kids like those relationships started to change.
What are some of those things? Where are you putting your time with
Yes.
Caitlin now?
So, I was going through like probably one of the using was a very dark spiritual time, but you kind of just didn't think about it, right? I didn't
Yeah.
think about God. I thought about dope and women. That was it, right? And then past that, just this very deep, dark period of time for me. Like, well, I would almost call myself an enemy of Christ, man. I was watching everything that spoke against it. I was really feeling like I believe that there's a God. I believe in this higher power, but this Jesus dude and this whole, I mean, it all felt wishy washy all of a sudden, right? Just a major event in life with, with something spiritual and somebody in my life. And it just felt like none of this is real. And I bought into none of this is real quick. Right. And as that's going on, there's only one thing I know how to do with raising a family. And it's because it's the way I was raised. You go to church on Sundays. And no matter how I felt about God, no matter how I felt about the Bible or the story or the fiction or it was all just mixed up in my mind. I knew that going to church was a good place for my kids to meet
Yeah.
friends, for us to meet people that are probably like-minded. There's people there that doubt and that feel the same way I did, right? And man, I'll tell you that now I see that that was an act of faithfulness, I think, on my part. And while I didn't know what I was doing and I doubted everything, every message, it was just, I met it with disdain and loathing and a lack of faith. The way that we feel about our lives is completely changed. With my decision to just lead my family, whether I believed it or not, to do that one thing every week. I can't help but do this with people. Like I just, bleh, right? That's something that, the 12 steps gave us, like being a part of group things. I do it at work. I do it with people that I meet. I met a lady on an airplane yesterday. We talked almost the whole time, man, and we know each other's life stories. It just happens. And it just happened with dudes that I was meeting. And the only people I was attracting into my life were people that felt the same way I used to feel. And I wasn't feeling that way anymore. And the people I was meeting that were in my life, man, I was met with like, because I'm telling them, I don't believe what I used to believe. I don't believe in the Jesus you believe in. And they're like, we love you anyways. And it's okay.
Yeah.
And the Bible is filled with great men that doubted God and had a lack of faith. Right. And God was still use those gentlemen and the women in ways. Started meeting men and my wife started meeting women and like just started to change when there were more real people around us. And man, so this church has this marriage. I'm going through it, man. I'm not believing, right? But I'm still going to church. And the church that we go to, man, it's got this marriage ministry. And even without this marriage ministry that my wife and I are now part of, like I'm very confident that the two things I'm best in life is being a husband and being a dad. And that's because of the influence of my father and having that example. I'm sure you can relate to that, right? Mark
Yeah.
is an amazing man.
I can relate to this so much. And I feel like since I've known you, you and Caitlin, I feel like I've been like on a journey that's slightly behind yours for whatever reason. And not like behind in the sense of like I'm behind, but like I'm living a similar path to you, just on a different timeline.
Yeah.
if that makes
Yeah.
sense, because you guys were, monetized on Facebook long before I ever saw anything like that. And then finally it came around for me, and like we were able to talk about that. You guys were like trying to help me to get to that point, and I'm so thankful that you did. There was a lot of struggle and strife through all of
Oh
that, if you
man.
remember. And so like I was kind of behind you on that on a different timeline. And then with where you were at, like our conversations about the doubt that you had, and I was in the same boat with the doubt that I'm having. And now here we are in South Carolina. We don't know anybody. We just moved down here on a whim. Don't know anybody. And our kids are like sitting at home with nothing to do certain nights. We were getting them into extracurriculars, but there's no kids on this street. So we're like, what are we going to do? Like, things were getting a little bit tense here at home. Not going to lie. You know that. I've talked
Mhm.
to you a few times about some of the things going on, but I just decided one day, like, we got to go to church. We got to go to church. And this was a couple months back, and we've gone, just about every week since I made that decision. And we've met so many people.
Mhm.
Um, our kids have made new friends. Like we've been invited to birthday parties and stuff like that. And there's still the doubt. I still struggle with a lot of the messages coming
Mhm.
from the stage. And I've just realized that that's okay. That's part of it. And I look around at the crowd, and I realize that, you know, a lot of people in here are probably in the same exact boat. And that's why they're there,
Mhm.
right? They're trying to get answers.
Mhm.
But the community
Mm.
and just putting ourselves out there has been so important. And I haven't gotten into any like small groups just yet. I'm still just, dipping my toes in the water a little bit,
Yeah.
but I can see that happening, and see that coming along and making friends through that. And again, I'm just a little bit behind on the timeline, just following in your footsteps, it seems like
Yeah.
sometimes. So it's cool to like get the perspective of you going through that, and then me having that lens to like kind of look through it as I'm following through that. So
Right.
very, very cool stuff, man. And I'm so glad that right after COVID was a tough time. I wouldn't say after, but like, after like the lockdowns and all of that was a
Mhm.
really tough, weird time for you. And we had a lot of conversations about just mental health
Mhm.
and anxiety, and where we've been. And I feel a lot of that being lifted from you with where you're at.
Mhm.
So whether or not you're dealing with doubt still or anything of that nature, it's a healthy thing, what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that I'm starting to feel much better about our presence here in South Carolina, and feeling less alone in that. And it's a cool thing, man. It's a cool
Right.
thing. And it's the ebb and flow of life. There's going to be other valleys that we go
Oh,
through.
man. Will there?
Yeah.
Will there ever? Yeah, man,
I'm,
the post-COVID time has been weird, right? It's like without COVID, right? We're like some of the first generations in the history of the world that raised families in a house by ourselves, right? That
yeah.
don't like have whole families living. We're like one of the only countries. I mean, there's still
Mm,
that's how people live, right? And then, you know, social media's kind of encroached upon that a little bit. And then COVID happened, and it was like you can't be around anybody. And then social
yeah.
media became more prevalent, and TikTok, right? And like these things came into place, and it's been like this perfect storm of like we find ourselves as a generation that raise our kids alone. We work remotely, we work alone at home. Recovery meetings, we go to 12-step meetings on Zoom, right? All of these
Hmm.
things are handled in the comfort of our own home in front of a computer screen. And we wonder why our met I wonder why is my mental health in the shitter right now? It's because I'm not
Exactly.
around people. It's because I'm not
And you're
living
a
a
people
life with
person.
community.
Yeah.
It's because I'm
Yeah.
stuck to my own devices instead of like being fully known. I think that's what's special. And right, we're living a relationship as God has intended relationships to be, right? We are
Yeah.
fully known by the people around us, right?
Yeah.
There aren't many people that fully know us, man. My wife fully knows me. You fully know me. You know, I'm in a men's group now. I give them the same emotion and vulnerability I'm giving you right now, right? I want the people that are in my life to know my ups. I want them to know what makes me tick. I want them to know that I'm really sad that this lady
Yeah.
lost her life. She's an innocent. She's on her way to work to provide for 10 kids. I want them to know I'm struggling with that.
Yeah.
I want them to know that I'm like an individual that struggles with lust, you know?
Hmm.
I want them to know these things because that is the way that we're better, right? I'm better if you know that about me. And once every month when we talk, you say, "Hey, dude, how are you? That was traumatic.
Yeah.
I love you and I hope you're doing well," right?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember a conversation we had a while back, and I was talking about Joy Academy, the community that I started. And you said something along the lines of, do you even feel joy, dude? And I got, I wouldn't say offended, but I was taken back a little bit because what I thought you were saying was like, you're not a joyful dude, man. Like every time we talk, you're talking about this negative thing or this negative thing. So I got defensive really quick and like started saying, well, of course I feel joy and because of this and because of this. And then I like took a breath and asked you, like, well, do you feel joy? And your answer was, well, not really, dude.
I don't think so, man.
And I think it was just the moment you were
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that morning, right? Because I know you feel joy. You're a joyful dude,
Yeah.
like with a lot of things. And, you know, I was worried about you after that conversation because we had to get off. You had got to work. Something was going on. I'm like, we need to talk about this later.
I don't know. I was in a funk that morning. I can tell you, I can finish that story though.
Yeah,
I think I
please.
ended up calling you the next day, which I don't
Yep.
usually do. And I said, "Hey, dude, I was thinking about the joy thing." And I said, "I do feel joy." I said, "Tonight, I was putting my kids down and it'd been hectic. And there was like a moment of quiet. I was just sitting in my daughter's room and like the whole day was starting to just like, it was stopping to weigh me down. And I got up and walked out of my daughter's room. And as I walked by the bathroom, she goes, "Hey, Dad, can you please come wipe my butt?" And I was there in
It's a
the
little,
moment and I
yeah,
smiled so big and it was pure joy.
yeah,
I'm living out my purpose as a father and a servant to my kids. And that's more than I ever expected to be doing in my whole life, man.
yeah,
And I feel joy. That morning was weird because
yeah,
I was questioning you. Like, you don't seem like you feel joy. I don't feel joy. You know, it was just one of those mornings, man. And then I was just
yeah,
smacked with it. I was smacked with just the biggest proof of like, there is joy in your life. We just got to be
yeah.
present in the moment a lot of times to see the joy.
That's exactly it. Yeah. You have to be present. You have to keep an eye on that joy meter too, you know, because it's, you know, happiness is a fleeting thing. It comes and
Man,
goes. It, joy is really, it's a way of life. It's a mindfulness. It's a
yeah,
living in the present
yeah, it's
and
choosing to
staying
see
in it.
through the minutia for those moments, man. Because
Yeah. Uh,
that single moment, that, "Hey, Dad, could you wipe my butt?" That's not a joy, right? That could have caused frustration.
yeah.
Wipe your own ass, kid. I mean, it
Right.
produced joy, not because it's joyful, because I'm joyful.
Exactly. It's within you. Kind of how I want to close it out is to give back in a way. And if anybody is on the fence of struggling with being addicted to social media or feeling like they have to keep up with the Joneses or feel like they have to continue to post because they have this momentum or this or that, whatever it is on social media. Um, what advice would you give to someone who wants to quit, who feels stuck? Either it's financially, emotionally, out of fear of losing their audience. What's the first step that you think someone can take to just set it aside?
Gosh, that's a hard one, man, because I feel like that first step is grueling, right? The first step is like one, it's like that first surrender of saying I'm an addict or I'm an alcoholic,
Yeah.
right? And choosing to start the battle. That's hard, scary, right? And it's weird to think of social media in the same way, but I believe it's as damage it can be. It can be. It can be healthy. It's right. I believe all the good things about it. I've just seen the other sides as well, right?
I'm going to give a shameless plug real quick. So, because I'm that guy.
Yeah, do it.
It's the first chapter in the book, and the first step in 12 steps is you have to admit there's a problem.
Right. There you go.
I always say there's, to fix any problem, that's a mandatory. Like there's 9
Sure.
steps in that book. There's 12 steps in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Many people would say that all 12 steps are mandatory,
Yeah.
but I would say number 1 is mandatory.
Yeah.
You can't fix any problem
Right.
until you admit it's a problem.
Right. Right. So
So
like
I think
like
that's awesome that you say that.
yeah, so like admitting that there's something up, but beyond that, it took a really deep look, an honest look at what is this bringing into our lives? Right? Because without the deep look, it's bringing popularity, it's bringing money, it's bringing validation. Like it's just bringing the things that we desire as a human that we're told, like, these are the things that make you successful. And they're good. We need them. I get those same things in my job, you know, but it's work. So we don't feel like, I don't feel this like overwhelming need to make that every facet of my life like social media did without us even realizing it, you know? So that
Yeah.
deep, dude, that deep, honest look at going, okay, is it like, sure, it validates me, but what is it taking the place of? For us, the validation that social media gave took all of the rest of it away. The relationship with a loving and caring higher power that we came to know in Narcotics Anonymous, gone, right?
Hmm.
Any relationship with who we now believe, right, to be our personal Lord and Savior, not present. Relationships in our lives, not present. All of it came from it. And part of our issue with social media might just be that same thing that made our ability to deal with drugs and alcohol non-existent too, right? It could just that all or nothing, like we go all in. So yeah, man, it's just to circle all the way back, dude. Like the first step, man, is that admitting like this might be an issue in my life, but then that really honest look, like, what does this do? How how does social media and my phone being in my hand all the time affect my life?
Yeah.
Is every family event that I'm at, I'm here while they're there?
Mm.
Is there more of this than that? You know, for me, I just started paying attention as I started taking things out and doing things less and less. I just, man, one of the funnest things during the week is seeing on Sunday when that screen time report comes up, right? It's like, was I less this week? Like I try to get less and less every week, right?
Yeah.
Less and less
Yeah.
hours per day that, you know,
I stopped looking at that because the first few times I looked at it when I was really in the throes of it and really just
ugh, it makes you feel sick,
publishing all
doesn't
the
it?
time. Yeah, I saw it and I'm like, there's no way.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no way I've spent that much time on this app. And that
10,
was
11 hours a day or something like that.
something like 8, I'm embarrassed to say, up into those numbers you were talking about on any given
Yeah.
month or week or whatever you were looking. But that's just, and the thing is, the way that I justify it and justified it is I do work from home and I work remotely and I do a lot of work on my phone.
Yeah.
And I consider my social media, even though it's a hobby and it's not necessarily bringing me an income to provide for my family, I consider it work. You know, it is my job. I own a media business and that's what I do. I create content. So it's my job. And it's like you go to your job for 8 hours a day. So that's how I would justify it. But it's
Right.
also like it's just a gross thing to look at. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I'm glad to hear because I haven't told that to anybody. I haven't even like told my wife, like, hey, my screen time is averaged at 8 hours a day. Like she might listen to this podcast all the way through and figure this out. But I've kept that from her because she would just be like, I told you you're on it too
Right.
much.
Right. Hey, I would challenge you at that point, right? Because other people, they don't realize how high theirs are. What's yours at, babe? Let's compare.
Yeah.
Don't start it.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
Just
The problem is we would compare and hers would be like an hour and a half. And I'd be like, God bless America. Dang it.
dude, if you're feeling a nudge, if you're feeling like I'm spending too much time, don't announce your departure to social media.
No.
Just take a
Yeah.
break. Dude,
Yeah.
try 30 days of no Facebook, no Snapchat, it's all social media, no YouTube, no Instagram, even though it's just photos, no TikTok. If there's somebody that's thinking about like, this is becoming an issue and it feels like I'm not living the life that is happening around me, try 30 days, no social media. Just try it.
There's dry January. So like not drinking in January, we can call this like fuck Facebook February. F Facebook February. Well, we'll censor myself a little bit there. F Facebook February. Just take 30-day break. Don't tell anybody. I love that you mentioned that. Nothing bothers me more than somebody who says like, I'm taking a break from Facebook. I'm not going to be back. And then, 8 hours later, you see them posting again. It's like, come on, dude. Like, just don't announce it. And you guys didn't. And like people like, I think I saw the post that you did recently with the young woman. I think somebody hopped in there, or maybe it was a post before, and it was like, where have you been? And you're like, just living life, dude.
Yep.
Just living life. You didn't announce it. You didn't announce that you're taking a break from Facebook. And I commend you for that because that always backfires when you announce.
I feel the same way about that as I feel like an emotional breakup. Like really emotional breakups tend to get back together because both parties really love each other and they feel badly about how they reacted. And so it's like, okay, this deserves another chance. I have noticed that when friends say, hey, we're done and there was no blow up, I think they're usually just done. Right. When we don't announce and make a big deal of things I think we have a higher rate of success in doing the thing we're trying to do,
Yeah,
I don't know.
exactly. Love talking with you, man. Yeah, we'll do this. We'll do this a couple times a year.
Yeah.
I think have you on this podcast. And
Sure.
just chit chat.
I probably
you a
won't call you
regular
this
thing.
week now that we've done this.
Yeah, this is like, you don't have to call me for 6 months if you don't want to. This was, please call me. Please call me. You're my only friend, man.
Please
Call me.
call me. I don't want to do this thing alone.
So let's close things out. I love to close things by just giving some sort of inspiration. And today we talked a lot about, stepping away from social media, but maybe it's not social media that you need to step away from. Can you give your best, kind of pep talk to somebody, whoever's struggling with something? Maybe it is addiction. Maybe it's some sort of mental health issue that they're afraid to admit to get help with. Maybe it is social media addiction or screen addiction or playing Candy Crush. Who knows what it is? Give me your best 30 second to a minute. Like, you can do this. You got what it takes.
Yeah, man, I think the most important thing in that for me that I began to realize in my life is that if I'm not changing it, if I know that something needs to change and I'm not changing it, I'm choosing it.
Amen.
And so it's really, man, like everything we do is hard. Changing is hard. Thinking about changing is exhausting. If I don't change it, I choose it. Right. So really here's what it comes down to for me. I need to choose my heart because staying the way that I am in addiction, staying the way that I am in infidelity, staying the way that I am on social media is hard. And it's going to cause me pain in my relationships. It's going to cause me pain in the way that I know I should be able to show up versus how I am showing up. So you got to choose your heart. It's going to be hard to stay where you're at. And there is pain in growth. There is pain in change. There are hardships and transitions. But if I'm going to choose my heart, I'm going to choose the heart that moves me forward and not the heart that keeps me right where I'm at.
Amen,
I
brother.
think
I appreciate it.
that's what I got, dude.
I think it's beautiful. Again, I appreciate you showing up, and just to kind of echo what you said, don't look at the whole staircase,
Mm,
look at the first step,
yeah.
look at the first step and just make that first right move. That's all you got to do. If you look at everything, if you look at the big picture of like how your life's going to change or how hard it's going to be, you're never going to do it because it's going to be too overwhelming. You're going to get stuck in this cycle of
Mhm.
anxiety. So just take the first step, and maybe it's a really small step,
Mhm.
maybe it's getting a locker for your phone or something and locking it up for an hour.
Yeah.
Maybe you try an hour at a time
Yeah.
or whatever you're dealing with, just that first step is important. And like Jeffrey said, choose your heart. What if you're struggling with something and you've come to a point where you're able to admit it's a problem, then it's a problem and it's hard. You're going through something hard already, something difficult,
Mhm.
and it's going to be hard to change that, but there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. There's going to be a new way of life
Mm,
after you get through that initial hard. So I really love what you said there, Jeffrey.
mm.
And I love you, dude.
Yep.
And just thank you again for being on the Inspire sessions. And we'll have you back soon. And with that being said, to all you out there listening, me and Jeffrey both say, I love you
Mhm. Love you.
and stay well. Peace. Talk soon, bud.
Love you, dude.